Grace and peace be with you. Hi, my name is Mark. I'm the pastor at Sycamore Creek in Potterville. I have a brief thought for you today from Psalm 132. I've been working my way through Psalms and my devotions, and we're in the Psalms of Ascent, a certain section of the Psalms. In the Psalms of Ascent, what they do is they lift our eyes and our hearts to God as they would have for the travelers who had headed to Jerusalem for festivals and to worship. And Psalm 132 may be the most unusual of this section of Psalms. It's much longer than the rest of these Psalms. Most of them are pretty short, and it's very historical. It deals with David and with his throne, and it leads to promises that focus us on the rule of the Messiah and of the presence of God continuing to dwell with God's people. So the first section of this psalm, it deals with David's promise to God in verses 1 through 9, specifically to find a dwelling place for God. And that's found in verses 2 through 5. It led to a building that would eventually be the temple where God would dwell. That's verses 6 through 9. And there's things here that we would miss if we're not familiar with the history of the Jewish people. So, for example, Ephrathah, I have no idea if I pronounced that right. Ephrathah, I don't know. That's actually Bethlehem, which is a town that we are familiar with. The fields of Jer are Kiriath Jearim, which is the place where the ark was for 20 years, the Ark of the Covenant. The call in this psalm to arise, O Lord, well, that comes from Moses in Numbers chapter 10. You see, what this psalm does is it next moves us to God's promise to David. That's in verses 10 through 12, and eventually to God's promise to all of us. That's verses 13 through 18. And what does God promise us? Well, God promises to dwell with us. This whole psalm is about God dwelling with God's people. It's about God providing salvation. That's verses 15 and 16. And it's a reminder that God reigns forever with us through Jesus. Praise God today for God's history. Praise God for God's promises that have been made and fulfilled. Praise God for God's presence dwelling among us. Grace and peace be with you.